everyone. Well, we've made some great progress on our 1967 Pontiac Parisienne, but we need to make some more, and we're going to put all of this into here. Also, we managed to cobble together an exhaust system, and I do mean cobble. Let's see how it sounds. That's the horn. Yeah, a lot quieter. We rev it up a bit. Not bad for just using the scrap of the yard.
You could try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me.
Okay folks, here we are under the back of the Parisienne. We're going to start replacing some of these bushings for our control arms. And yes, they call them control arms. You got the swing arms here, which are your lower control arms. And then you got your upper control arm here. Now, depending on what car you have, you're going to have one, which will be on the passenger side. And if it's a low power car, that's all you're going to have.
This is the vehicle's top speed.
You can see, I'm going to have one on this side. If you get the higher power one, you'll probably have two of those, so you got to know what you have to order. Number two, we're going to do the shocks. Obviously, they're pretty shot, but I want to give you a little tip about this upper control arm. You'll see on ours, you'll look right there. Well, you're not getting that bolt out.
This isn't the biggest bag over the head punch in the face.
It's going to hit the frame. But if we come back here, you'll see that you got 3 bolts sticking through, and you got nuts on them. You take those out, you'll be able to take this whole bracket off. See that sense? So once you get this other end out, this will just pull out. You'll be able to separate these, replace the bushings, put it all back together. So that's what we're working on now. Okay, we got our upper control arm off the back of the car. You can see how shot this bushing is. We have our energy suspension polyurethane bushings that we're going to put into this. The complete kit, so we can do the uppers and the lowers. So let's get this apart. We'll take this bracket off. There we go. And we're going to get these bushings out. I'll show you how we're going to do that in a minute. Okay, so one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to check our parts, because if you'll remember, we ordered the parts for 67 Impala. Now this is a Parisienne, but as I've said before, it's Canadian, and the Canadian car is built on a Chevy platform, Chevy chassis. So we ordered the parts for the Chevy. So let's make sure we get the right parts. Nice thing is we got some installation instructions. Tells you how to do some of this stuff. It's actually kind of important to read these because it's going to tell you about lubricating the polyurethane bushings. But the other thing that it's going to probably tell you is that when you do your suspension, you want to do it with the suspension loaded. That prevents you from tearing the bushings once you get them in. Okay, so let's talk about how I plan to do this. I got my ball joint tool, and we're going to press the center bushing out. And then after we get that out, then we'll push the rubber out. So it's a little bit tricky. It's going to want to go a little bit sideways, but we want to try to get the bushing to come out through the top here. Let's see if we can do it. There you can see that we've got the bushing coming through the hole here. It's a little funky, but it's working. We're going to keep hitting it, see if it comes all the way through. Got our bushing out. Now we can work on getting the rubber out. Yes, my tool's a little broken, but it still works fine enough. All right. That sleeve. There you go. Got most of the bushing pushed out, and it's out. That's simple. Okay, we're going to grease up our bushings. Don't want them to squeak. Now we cleaned up our control arm and painted it up, so it looks pretty. Now I will give you one tip. When you're doing this, grease the lower portion of the bushing, because as you can see, the grease will work its way up to the top. So you don't necessarily have to grease right up to here with a lot of grease. It'll push its way up as it goes in. I'm going to go finish pushing this in. Just use the vise. Well, there we go. We got one bushing in. All greased up, ready to go. We'll get on to the other ones. Okay, as you can see, we got all the bushings built up. Everything's together. Put this back in the bracket now. we'll get it back in the car. Okay, now that we got our shocks replaced and we got our upper control arm replaced, we're going to work on our lower control arms right here. Got these guys here. We're going to do the one on this side, we're going to do the one on that side, and we're going to get the bushings done on those. Let's get started on that. See if the cat wants to help. So one thing we have to do is, you can see we have the jack stands on the axles, and we did that for a reason. It's so that we could load up the suspension. When we put the new bushings in, we want the suspension loaded. But right now, to get everything out, we're going to have to unload it. So how we're going to do that is, we got the jack on the frame. Go ahead and start jacking up, and you'll see that the body of the car is lifting off of the suspension and unloading the spring, taking the tension out of everything. And once we get it high enough, we can put a jack stand underneath the car frame itself. Okay, that's good. Taking our jack stand out of the axle, we got to disconnect our shock. And the reason we have to do that is we need this axle to pivot down so we can take the tension off of this spring and relieve all the pressure that's on this lower control arm. There we go. And you can see that pull down on it a bit. Most of the tension's off of this spring now. So I'm going to pop this out, get the tension off the arm, and we're going to get this back on a jack stand. All right, I apologize about the wind. It's like very blustery right now. Hopefully it won't get us too bad, but I just want to point this out. When you're doing these swing arms, control arms, whatever you want to call them on the back end, just check your mounting brackets. As you can see, this one's got a crack. So we're going to kind of knock that back together, weld it back up before we put the arm back in. And I got a couple tips about replacing the arms, or the bushings on the arms too, so let's get into it. Okay, a couple tips when you're pressing the bushings out of these and pressing new ones in is you want to reinforce here. Put something in there, because this will squeeze together and try to push the metal insert out. And this one's pretty beat up actually. I'm not thrilled about that, but we're probably going to replace these in the future, so we'll live with it for now. Now the one thing I do want to point out that we will do to this, we're going to box them. We don't want to box it there because, well, we need access to that hole. But we can box it down at this end. We're going to make it a little bit stronger. So just take a piece of sheet metal like that. We're going to clean it up, weld it in, and then we'll put another chunk over here. Make sure we leave our access to that hole. But that'll stiffen this up a fair bit, reinforce it, make it a lot stronger. And it's just a cheap way to upgrade these lower control arms, and then we'll move on and get them back in the car. So with the polyurethane, boxing them in like that a little bit, it'll help improve the handling a little bit anyways, until we upgrade these to something much better. Okay, we're looking at our lower control arm. You can see I've put this in here to reinforce this when I'm pushing the bushing out, so that we don't squeeze the two ends together. You want to make sure you do that. Now the other thing you could do is you could weld your piece of metal in there, reinforce this, box it in, and that'll keep that from compressing when we do this. But right now I'm just doing that so we can change the bushings, and I'll weld in the metal later because I just don't have it all right now. And we're going to use the same method as we did on the upper control arm. We're going to push the bushing out first, or the metal bushing out first, and we're going to push out the rubber. Let's get to it. Once again, we're going to put our bushings in. We're going to grease them up. And one thing I do want to point out, the side with the the ridge is going to go on this side of the bushing that has the wide area, and the other side, I'll show you on this one here. So that's a nice big radius there. Flip it over, and you see that that doesn't have a flat seat there. So this seat is going to go against that seat, and then this little ring is going to go on the other side. Okay, there you have it, folks. One rebuilt trailing arm, lower control arm. We'll get that back in. We even reinforced it. Now we still got to put another piece of reinforcement over here. We'll do that a little bit later. We got to clean up all the little mounting bolts and stuff for the spring and the pad and all that. So we'll put this back in the car probably tomorrow. To you guys, it'll be the same video. Okay, let's get these in the car. Well, there we go. We have our control arm fully boxed, as much as we're going to box it anyways. It's a big improvement from stock. We'll get that back in the car. Okay, well, we've cleaned up our drum and we've painted some stuff up. We've cleaned up our frame a little bit. Still got some more I want to clean up, but we're getting our swing arm back in. One thing I want to point out while we're doing this, you got to make sure you grease your bushings here, right there, but grease that guy. And we've already got this one in, and I did repair that crack we had. And you remember we had a crack right there, and so repair it up. But don't tighten up your bolt yet, because we want this to swing fairly easily until we get the spring back into its pocket and then mount it onto this control arm. So once we've got the spring in place, then we got the other bolt in place here, then we can look at tightening all this up. Okay, here's what we're going to try to do. Notice I got the spring out still, and I got a piece of wood up here blocking my axle to the frame up here, and this keeps the axle from trying to push itself up while we're trying to push the lower bushing in here. The problem is, it shouldn't be a problem, but it could be a problem, if we don't have enough articulation for this spring when we go to put it back in. I think we'll be okay. We're almost there. We'll give it a couple more pumps, because we're using the weight of the car to help us push the bushing in there. You can see it's going now. It's a tight fit, man, so you gotta be careful. And then we got our beading implement here that we can give it a couple hits to try to jiggle it in there. And then once we get it close enough, we'll put an awl or something in there. I'm starting to get a bit of the hole now, so we should be able to wiggle something around, get the bolt in. There we go. Yeah. Nice. Just gotta get that side done. All right, folks, there we go. Things dressed up a little bit. We got our control arms of our new bushings in there. We got our new shocks on. We tidied up the wheel well a little bit. Painted up the frame a bit just to make things look a little nicer. We'll do more later, but this is good for now. And like I said, we tightened everything up with the suspension loaded, supporting the weight of the car. So we're gonna get the wheels back on it and see what happens. Okay, we're gonna move on to the upper control arms, get these off so we can replace these bushings. And we're gonna have to take these bolts out here. I don't know if you can see that very well. There you go. And the other one there, and get this ball joint off, and we'll move all this hub assembly over to the side here, put it on a crate. So we're going to get to that. We also are going to do the shocks and the lower control arm and the brace bars, strut bars. We're going to do our sway bar, all that good stuff, all new bushing. Okay, after hitting all this stuff with penetrant oil, what we did is we ran our nut off the upper ball joint. We ran it all the way off, make sure it was off, then we threaded it back on a little bit, because if your threads are gummed up or whatever, you want to make sure you get this thing all the way off before you break this free. Now our ball joints are still in good shape, so we don't want to wreck them. We don't want to use the pickle fork, so we beat on here with the ball peen hammer until it cracked loose. We left the spring and the shock attached, and that's the other reason we put the nut here. Now we'll put the jack underneath and take the weight when we take the spring out, so that we can unload this lower control arm without damaging ourselves, because we don't want this spring flying out at us, and the jack will help control that. So right here you can see why we're doing this. That's in pretty bad shape, that bushing. But one thing I will point out to you is you got to be very careful, that because there's shims behind each of these, and that adjusts the suspension on your car, so your steering angles and stuff like that, and we don't want to mess that up. So we're going to be paying very particular attention, and that'll adjust your camber, by the way, folks. Let's get to getting this off. Yeah, we got our bolts out. Like I said, we're going to pay attention to our front shim and our rear shims, so we know how to stack these up. Get our upper control arm out. Maybe. There we go. We'll go get that cleaned up and get these bushings replaced. Now let's talk about installing the new bushings. Now, if your metal sleeves are still in good shape, I don't recommend replacing them, simply because these kind of have to be aligned. You can get these a little bit crooked and offset, and if these are in good shape, you might as well just replace the polyurethane or the rubber or whatever you have, and save these for something else. The other thing I want to point out is when you put this in, we're going to put the white grease on it, that good stuff right there. It's going to go on the bushing, and it's going to go on the outside of this bushing. But we're going to use anti-seize for the metal to metal contact. We're not going to use the white grease. All right, let's get to getting this together. Put a nice amount of grease on this, get nice and greased up. Slide it in, there we go, just like that. Now, before we get too carried away, we want to look at getting this back in. As I said, we're going to put the anti-seize on here. Both sides. And just slide it in there. So I left the one bushing out so that we could get the pivot shaft in. I'm going to put that bushing back. There we go. You want to grease up our bushing on the outside because this comes in contact with our rubber, our polyurethane, and we don't want it to squeak. Grease that up nice and liberally. There we go. Slide that in. There we go. Make sure there's some grease there. And then when we put this bolt back in, we're going to put a bit of Loctite on there. Got a washer and a bolt. This guy here, which I'll get cleaned up. Put it back there. Lock washer, bolt, and put a little bit of Loctite there too. There you go. One rebuilt upper control arm. Let's have a look at our lower control arm, specifically right here. These are special washers that you're going to have to retain if your kit does not come with new ones, because you need them for the camber adjustment to bolts. And the best way to get these out is to lock them in a vise and then wiggle the arm back and forth until these pop out. So let's give it a go. Okay, you can see that we've got this washer locked into the vise. This is our front washer and this is our rear washer. We're just going to start wiggling a bit. There you go, it's out just like that. We're going to retain that for the new bushings. We'll get this one out. We'll do it the same way. There you go. Clean it up with the wire wheel and we'll reuse that. I marked the back side of this washer with an F for front. That way I know it goes on the front side of the control arm. Just in case I get taken away from this job, then we've got it marked. We know where it goes. There's the aft one. Go clean that up, mark it with an A, and we're all good. Okay, the other thing I need to point out is our new kit did not come with the metal bushing, spacer, whatever you want to call it. So we're going to have to save that when we push this bushing out. We also got to be careful that we don't squish this. We could put the plate in here and reinforce it like we did with the back ones. We might do that. We'll see what we're going to do, but right now we're more concerned with saving this middle spacer. Okay, there you have it. We got our lower control arm all done up. We've replaced our bushing, put our washers back in. These are very important. Need both of those in. We're going to get this back in the car. It's ready for it. All right, we got our front suspension all together. We got our wheel bearing all greased up. We got our rotors painted up. We got ball joints greased up on this side. Everything's all painted up. So final thing we have to do is right there, the sway bar. I'm going to replace the bushings, replace the links, and get that done. Okay, here's an interior hack for you. If you don't really have the time or the finances to recover your interior, well, just go get yourself a decent shipping blanket and some hog ring pliers. Some hog rings. What you can do, as you can see, we've just hog ringed it all on the back here, and we'll do the sides as well. Fold it over, do the sides, and this will just be a quick, cheap cover that'll stay on pretty well. It's not going to last forever, but it's a good way to just cover up a damaged seat. You can see what we're starting with. We want something fairly comfortable for people to sit on, so we vacuum up everything as much as we can. We clean it up, wipe it down. Then we take our shipping blanket, we hog ringed it on the back here. We're just going to take it, fold it over like that. And we're going to hog ring the front down, get some tension in it. And we're going to call it a day. And then we got this other layer that we can lay over top still. Or we can run it up the back of the seat or something like that. Well, there you go, you get the idea. That's the seat getting kind of recovered. It should fit in there and be fine. Be good enough for someone to ride on. And like I said, we can always take this section and we can double fold it, get a little more cushion on here. There you go. One seat recovered for about $25. Hey, what do you think? How's it work?
Feels good.
Yeah, feels pretty normal?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Well, let's get on the front seats then. Get in there. All right, folks. We got our neutral safety switch, which on these old cars go at the base of the column right here. And this little slide right here makes the contacts. So as you put it in gear, it'll slide that over. And this is our backup lights, our neutral, and our park switch. So hopefully once this is installed, we'll have backup lights and we won't be able to start it in gear. And we need that for the safety. Okay, hopefully we can see this all right, but you can see our little white guide in there. There's reverse, neutral, drive. So we can see it moving. Let's see if everything, we'll hook the wires up and see if it still works. All right, so let's pull it into reverse and see if it'll start. No starty. Let's go to park. Ah, yeah. Nailed it. Excellent. Okay, so I wasn't really happy with what was going on with the old rad and the fan and stuff like that. So we've pulled the fan off. We're going to go to electric fans. I prefer mechanical fans. We added a support down here for the rad, put a couple mounts in it, and we're going to put in that guy right there, which is at a 3rd gen F body, and it's got the transmission cooler lines can go into that, and then we can mount other stuff in front of it if we have to, power steering, cooling, whatnot. So that's our basic rad setup for now. Let's just try it in there. Okay, there you go. We've got it in there. Just kind of sit in there for now. We'll put some rubber isolators down there, just like they do on the newer cars. And then we'll put a couple clamps here to tie it in so it doesn't wobble around. And then we've got our electric fans that can go on, dual electric fans. Okay, there we go. We got our radiator mounted up. We got the mechanical fan back on with lots of clearance. Still got to figure out what we're going to do with intake. Checking for leaks. We're going to let it pressurize right now. We don't have a fan shroud on it. We were planning on using electric, but I don't know, maybe we'll build something with a shroud for it instead. Well, folks, we got this thing purring a lot better. It still might have an odd misfire on cylinder 6. We'll have to look into that, but otherwise, she's doing good. I think we're going to get rid of this clutch fan because I just have no way to route intake hose here for the air intake. And we'll put some electrics on it. So, how long has it been since we tried starting it with you? About a month?
Oh, a month or two.
No, it hasn't been 2.
Okay, a month.
I will say a month. So you ready to try driving it?
I sure am.
Go
How
for
fast
it.
have you taken it? I want to beat that.
No,
Yeah.
no. I think
Okay.
about at 80 kilometers an hour. Well, let's see if it works.
All right, I'm out of here.
Okay. Well, there's Dad taking his old car for a spin. Hey! Oh, he's coming back. Well, that's a good sign. Yeah? How's it feel?
This is way better.
Yeah?
When I was 16, 96 miles an hour, it would quit.
Wait, what? How fast did you go?
Don't worry about it. I'll tell you later.
How's it drive?
Pretty good.
Yeah?
This feels good.
Does it? That's
yeah,
awesome.
It does. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna hop in with you.
Okay.
Home, James.
I'm 16 again. Gonna pass me a beer.
No.
You want to know why I pulled you over?
The times have changed a bit, Dad.
Oh, have they?
Yeah. Does it feel pretty solid, or is it all over the road, or?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd drive to Arkansas right now, but it feels pretty good.
Oh, that's good.
It's been a long time.
I think it drives pretty good, honestly.
It does, yeah. Ah, good old girl.
Nice and quiet.
Yeah. Oh, good shape for being this old.
Well, I might have recovered the one. So one more person gets to try driving this before we call it a night. What do you think about that?
Nice.
Nice. Guess who you're taking for a ride? Ain't no 96 miles an hour this time. Okay, bud. Have fun. Oh, he took off better than Dad did. Nice. Well, we're down, but are we out? We don't know. Here's the deal. We got all the mechanical done. We got the alignment done. We got the windshield in it. It's running pretty good, but we can't get the out-of-province inspection done. And for our American friends, that's something like the DMV requires that, so that they can certify the car to go back on the road and register it. And, well, unfortunately, the provincial system is down. That's the reason why we can't do it. It's not because the car's not ready, and that kind of sucks. So, I don't know if we're going to make it down there with this car, but let's see what happens.